evening, everyone. Welcome to ULTV Study Abroad 101. I'm Shefali Shrivastava, Marketing and Communication Manager at University Living. UK has always surpassed other countries when it comes to higher education overseas. UK has made it to global list of most sought after universities. To take you through these top universities and courses, we have Suneet Singh Kocher with us, CEO of Fateh Education. Hello, Suneet.
Hi, Shefali.
Suneet is an alumnus from IIM Calcutta, a former investment banker with HSBC, and a graduate from SRCC, Delhi University. He has been forefront of study abroad industry for about 2 decades. Welcome again, Suneet. Please share a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Hi, Shefali. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure being here with you again. Little bit about us, Fateh. We've been here for almost just under 2 decades. We've been helping students for UK and Ireland, very specialized service. We don't do multiple countries. We understand these 2 countries in depth. We've sent thousands of students, giving us a better understanding, a deeper understanding of these 2 countries, and which we're able to pass on to our students, future students as well.
Right. My next question was about to this only, that how Fateh Education is making difference in the lives of international students. Like, if I talk about like 10 students, 5 of them are or 6 of them are from Fateh Education. So what kind of huge difference you guys are making in the industry?
Right. Thank you so much, Shefali. See, I'll tell you, what we try and do, Shefali, is that instead of us trying to shortlist or trying to superimpose our will on the students, what we try and do is we try and help the student explore what they are seeking. The idea is to open up conversations, make them understand what are the parameters they should be judging, what is so specific to them. Because what happens is that students, when they come to us, they're probably the first ones in their entire extended family going abroad. They're unaware of what questions to ask. And because they're unaware of the questions to ask, they don't know what to search. So, when you come to a consultant, the idea, the easy way out is tell them this is what you should do. Okay. Vis-a-vis, in our way, what we do is we do have a detailed conversation, try and understand the student, and then throw up the questions they should be looking at. And that's the question when students go back, do the research, come back to us, and ask the second level questions. Because we help students understand the first level questions and then solve the second level questions, I think that's helped us build a lot of reputation of brand between the students. This is one of the key things we make a difference in students' life. The other thing is also in terms of trying to prepare them to be ready, before they reach the country as well. Because majority Indian students tend to go for master's program, and master's program in UK and Ireland tends to be for 1 year. 1 year is a very, very short period of time. If the students are not prepared for it, they that 1 year passes away at the blink of an eye. And that's where the problem lies, is that you need to be prepared. What are they going for? If they're going for a career, what are they aiming for? Networking, anything else. Our role is to keep guiding them so that they phase in very, very gently into the system, but they maximize the value they generate from it. So that's the other thing we make a difference in.
Great. In fact, I will be asking this question. I'll be again circling back to the points that you mentioned over here. Fateh Education takes care of Ireland and UK. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I would like to only focus on UK as of now. What factors make UK as one of the best country for studying abroad and all that? Like, if you talk about, of course, people are inclined towards USA, but UK for medicals and others, different courses, what factors UK has and what offerings does it have?
Well, UK, I'll tell you, there are multiple things that work in UK's favor. One, it's one of the oldest destinations where Indian students have been studying abroad from. You go back 100+ years, you'll see Indian students over there. And we hear of a lot of our freedom fighters, including Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, who actually studied in the UK. So there's a historic link when it comes to studying. 2, of course, UK is also the cradle of the modern education in many ways. The likes of Oxford, Cambridge, these are universities which have actually given birth to modern education. So obviously there is a very high quality of education in UK because the system has been evolving for hundreds of years and has been able to come up with a system which is helping students maximize their potential, get career ready, get industry ready, yet also be problem solving oriented. Other things which attract students to it is that, as I said, a lot of Indian students are looking at master's program. 1 year master's in UK is a big selling point because for a lot of people, 2 years funding is not that easy. A 1 year funding in UK, that makes it possible. So you can get a chance to study in world-class universities without having to break the bank to cover for 2 years. It's just not 2 years fees, it's also 2 years of living as well. Third is, of course, there is a lot of family links as well. You would tend to find that, we've seen that 8 out of 10 students who come to us seem to have some distant relative, if not a close one, in UK. So feel there's a support system in place. And finally, it's again also about, you're away from a country, yet you don't want to lose your roots as well. So, there are a lot of things which you find in UK which work. So there are, Diwali celebrations for one, or, the kind of food you get and everything else around it. It's because of the so strong integration that, Indian students settle down much faster than most of the other destinations for, and that's what keeps it going. Finally, Shivali, in the last year and a half, UK government has reintroduced graduate immigration route, which allows Indian students to stay back for another 2 years post completion of the course to find work. You can work full time, but the idea is to also to help them find proper work, which moves you or allows you to shift into a proper work visa. So the government of UK is giving you plenty of time to migrate into a full time work visa, and in this process, in this time period, continue working full time.
Right, right. You mentioned twice that masters in UK is actually a 1 year course, and of course, it create a huge difference if we talk about 2 years. And as you mentioned, of course, it's not just education; there are multiple other parameters also where the spend is happening. So, which is better in UK, a master's degree or undergrad? If a student has to just choose between one.
Okay, so Shifali, it's a very tricky thing. Which one would you pick up? Again. Personally, if you can afford an undergrad degree, because undergrad degree being a 3 year, it's 3 times the cost of a master's. I do recommend and do encourage people to do the undergrad because it builds a very strong base around it. If you look at how the system is worked around, over here, when you look at a batch, our schooling is brilliant. There's no doubt about that. When you go to the bachelor's, we do have some world-class institutions, okay, but they're pretty limited in that extent. So what happens is, what we are forced to do is get into working with curriculum which are 10 years, 20 years, even 40 years in the past, living in the past kind of a thing. To the way the structuring, the assessment is done, it's about how much can you mug up, okay, which may not necessarily give you the best benefit of it because, it's a fact. Most students forget a lot of what they study in the college during the college time itself, okay. When you move to UK, what happens is, yes, students will forget a lot of what they study over there as well. But how the system over there does is, it's not about reproducing what you've been taught in class. It's about trying to bring in an opinion on it. So it forces you to read through multiple sources, identify, understand, and bring out your analysis of it. What it does is it brings your mind to become very problem solving. It allows you to it makes you life ready. It gives you life skills, and that mindset when you build up and you can continue in your life, and even if you do your masters or even if you don't, the whole idea is that the mindset you've built the 3 years on it gives you a huge chance. Masters, yes, it's great opportunity, but still a year. It may not give you the best opportunity to network. It may not give you as much time as an undergraduate would to understand the system, and it kind of, so I personally believe if you can afford to start at the undergrad level, but again, there are other reasons besides financials. It's also is that, 18-year-olds, a lot of parents are not comfortable sending 18-year-olds for different reasons for it, for good or for the bad. That's not for me to comment on. As long as you're comfortable sending them and can afford it, I do strongly suggest taking the undergrad as well as UK.
Right. And well said, the more the exposure, the better the, networking and other opportunities are there. Right. Now, when we have finalized that, okay, I want to go to UK, how should I go about a course and a university? I believe these 2 points are very important, especially the university part.
Sorry, Shifali, you have to repeat this question.
So how to shortlist the right university and the course?
Oh, absolutely. Shifali, I think that's very, very important, is how to shortlist the right university. Because, people, there are multiple parameters to judge. Again, if you remember when I started my conversation, we talked about how students being the first ones or the only ones in their family or extended family going abroad. And for them, what we've seen most students starts with is they start with what is the ranking. Okay. So ranking is a good starting point, but it's not the only point which you look at. Ranking works is because, you again need to understand ranking. There's no government body which does it. There are private news organizations, magazines, which do these rankings. And because of which, ultimately sensation sells. So you need to ensure the ranking keeps moving up and down every year, So, but if you look at it from a medium-term perspective or a longer-term perspective, you realize most universities juggle around in a certain bucket. Okay, so you tend to see a 1 to 5 would, kind of rotate between them. 5 to 15 would rotate between themselves, and 15 to 30, and so on and so forth. But if you go with an absolute ranking, what happens is you probably picked up something which is 15th, and by the time you graduate, it's 30th. Okay, so you probably been shortchanged because that was the criteria you used. So first thing is, how do you use your ranking? Yes, I would say is bucket universities into different different rankings together and figure out anything in it is fine because it will change. Two, the second stage of ranking comes is try and figure out what the department is good with. Which universities, because some universities are better for certain other courses and some for the different ones. What are you seeking for? One rule of thumb which we've seen students use, something we recommend, is trying to look at kind of research projects the university is doing in that field. The number of courses, the research projects, because if you have a university doing a lot of courses, a lot of research in that, the university is strong with that. Because a lot of people say, how do I identify this university over the other one? I said, look at research projects. And research projects is very important because it also tells you how cutting edge curriculum you're working with. Because the more in-depth the research the university is getting into, the higher the chances that a lot of it would be taught during your college as well. Okay. Third comes is, how do we is to understand yourself, because remember, education, yes, what you study is important, but everything else around it also equally important. So it's important to understand, who are you? Are you a music person? Are you into theater? Are you into sports? Okay, so identify which cities will fit for you, which will give you more exposure, where can you enjoy a lot of it. Then we also suggest people is to see is, how frequently do you intend to travel? If you intend to come in and out of it. So let's say for an undergrad student, we normally recommend being close to an international airport. What it does is it allows the parents to come in and out, the parents' kids to go out as well. Remember, at an 18-year-old landing up in a different country the first time with loads of luggage, and then trying to figure out, a bus or a train, which is for a 3-hour long, it can be very, very nerve-wracking. Yes, it's a different thing at a postgrad level, but at undergrad level, it could be a little bit of nerve-wracking. So it's important to pick universities which you feel you can travel to easily, because it's not going to be once. You'll keep going in and out over your 3 years or 4 years. So the proximity to an airport, and that proximity to airport also works is that if you're intending to explore, we see a lot of students who are into travel, because travel does develop a lot about you. So you would prefer to be which is strong train links or a strong airport link for that matter. Then we've also seen things like, cost of living, which is very important. Okay, because we see students will come in and tell us, can I do work part-time over there? Okay, and my answer to them is usually is, instead of trying to find part-time, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with part-time. You should, when you get an opportunity to, but that's not the objective you should go with. The objective is, if the objective is because you would like to cover some living expenses, then find a city where the living expenses will be lower. Because remember, these are your final years before you start your career. This is the time for you to explore yourself, find yourself, see what you're good with, develop what you're better with, and try and cover your shortcomings. It is also a time to network. It is a time to build bonds. It's a time to figure things out for yourself, and simultaneously work for your longer term career. Figure out what are your, if you look at your profile, what are the gaps in your resume or in your profile? How can I cover them? Should I be doing a research project? Should I be working with my professor? Should I be getting into something else? So all of those things come into place, because you should figure out what are you seeking. So again, that's why we said picking up a city is equally important, because it'll help you reduce your expenses or maximize it. But again, talking about city is also its understanding is, are you a big city person or are you a small city boy? So some people love the big lights of a city. Some people don't. Some people like to be left in a scenic place. See, advantage of a city is, yes, there's a lot happening. Downside is a lot of the universities in the city are campus are not campus universities, which means this infrastructure is spread around a lot of part of the city, which may not give you the experience you're seeking. For some, it fits in perfectly. For others, is they want that campus experience. So again, it is identifying your universities. Am I going to get a campus experience? Am I not? Am I seeking a campus experience? That's the first question. But then should I take one or not? So there are a lot of these parameters go in. And as I said, ranking can be a good starting point, but it should not be the only criteria when choosing a university.
Right. In fact, the parameters that you have mentioned, I believe few parameters are the first time that I'm hearing. I've been doing this webinars and ULTV for a long time now, and these parameters sound really small, but they're very important. And in fact, the airport pickup is actually very crucial. In fact, university living can help you over there. We can help you with the accommodation as well, but airport pickup is there. And it's very overwhelming for a student, or any, even for the master's person who doesn't have a background over there, who doesn't have anyone as a backup over there. So of course it's very overwhelming. And the points you mentioned around like research, to know what kind of curriculum is different, to have a campus experience, they are really good parameters which can make us an identify and listing down that, okay, this is the checklist that I need to go through. So I've given a good checklist to the students, and I'm sure our viewers and joinees who will be watching this will be, really find it really interesting and good, helpful as well. So now with this new academic year after COVID, I'll say this is the new academic year which is happening on a regular basis, we can say that. Have you seen any kind of new courses are in demand? Any effects of pandemic on these choices?
Oh yes. See, actually, Shifali, there is definitely we're seeing a shift. I wouldn't necessarily say only because of COVID, but we're generally seeing a shift in the kind of courses students are going in for, depending on how the industry is evolving as well. So certain things. If you look around, where what if you when your question was COVID, so we've gone to a very virtual world, and around the same time is what let's say Facebook has been talking about the metaverse. Okay, so we're just taking the virtual world to a more immersive world. Okay, and if you look at it, we're at the start of it. To get to that world, we need people who can develop it for us. So those are areas which this is an area we started to see a lot of demand coming in for. What you call immersive technologies. Virtual reality, AR. So those kind of courses is what you've seen the demand pick up after COVID, where they feel they can see there's a value in it. But not just these courses, but generally around it. Again, if you look at COVID, using of data to analyze the pandemic was something that people realized helped them identify and plan in advance. The Western countries used it very effectively. Of course, the pandemic was something new for all of us. We all struggled. But, there's a lot of learning which has happened. So we've seen data being used with health science a lot more than it was used in the past. You predict waves, predict, illnesses, curves around it. So that's another thing which you've seen, which is happening, and we're seeing students getting interested in it. Third, we're seeing again the Western world generally, but overall around the world, the need to invest a lot more in healthcare has come in. And I think the students also realize it. We're seeing students going in for healthcare courses. There's a marginal uptick, and we see that growing further as they start seeing there's employment opportunities being generated as well, which we will see. So those are things, those are the immediate COVID-related impact. But outside of COVID, I would see there's still a lot more happening as well. If you look at cybersecurity, again, I would say because of COVID or outside of it, the impact around, we to protect yourself, protect your company, protect your individually. So, the cybersecurity, network security seems to be a thing which people seem to be picking up as well, And so we are also seeing a shift towards humanities. I think which is very interesting from an Indian perspective, because we've normally not seen too much demand coming to humanities, but over the last 2 years we've seen that shift. And that I would not necessarily say it is COVID. It's because people realize that the need to build lateral thinking, as AI is starting to take over a lot of jobs, that over a longer term period is not so easy for AI to take over. So humanities courses, psychology courses, those are things we've seen a big jump come in the last couple of years.
Great. There was a little internet lag. If you want to repeat after AI, you can repeat that. Okay. AI is taking a lot of jobs.
Sorry. So Shifali, we've also seen is that, with AI taking over a lot of roles in the companies or even in processes and everything else, the students are realizing they need to go one up. One way to do it is build lateral thinking skills. Lateral thinking is something we don't expect the AI to take over, at least for the next generation and a half. And that's where we've seen students going for humanities, we go in for psychology and allied courses where people are more, it's more, I would say, not a number based, but it's more about thinking. It's about perception. So we've seen that interest also come along. So those courses are also doing well, and we see employment opportunities over there as well.
Great. In fact, I believe this is somewhat we discussed in the new age courses of the webinar. Yes, right? Things are changing, and pandemic has given a very new interface even to the students and the parents, and I believe everyone who was in the walk of life. So now coming to the admission and application process. A lot of students feel a lot of pressure when we talk about application. So what kind of hacks or what a student can do to make their application stand out among the UK universities and business schools?
Well, I think Shivali's first thing, important thing for the student is to understand that he needs to let the university know that he's serious about it. Okay, and that can only come in when you've understood the course and the statement of purpose reflects your understanding of the course. A lot of times students do this one statement of purpose for all universities. Okay, and I think that's not just from the admission perspective; it is also for the student to understand the course better. Because the moment you write a good SOP specific to the course, you understand the course and realize, do you really want to do it? You know, and the moment you realize it, you're also, when you're confused, should I go for university A or university B? You're able to realize, or should I go for course A or course B? You're able to realize what you want to do. So it works from that aspect. But that also is because you understand, your clarity becomes clear. The university also understands, look, the student is serious about it. So, we've seen that when it comes to borderline cases, this plays a huge role on it. Okay. It's also about trying to understand the cycle, because some universities recruit, so the courses get filled up very early in the cycle. So, if you come much later, you may not get those universities. So it's about to figure out when to apply to which university. So those about is how the application cycle should work with. Again, you do need professional help who knows how it works, because sometimes people don't understand is which scholarships to apply, when to apply. Again, that could be, while the admission criteria might not make much of a difference in the application, but the same application, when it's used for scholarship, you make a big difference. So students don't realize it is the same application is going to be used, and realize they come to us much later and say, what can we do now? So it's about trying to get earlier and say, where are we? How long are we looking at this application? Are we looking at just admission? Are we looking at admission and scholarship? Are we looking at building further into it as you're going to your college life? So that's the idea, is to streamline your application for a smoother process which works through the cycle.
Right. So I believe it's for all the process. If you start early, you'll have better time to research and execute things in a better planned manner. And of course, as you mentioned, that it should be customized. Every SOP and every application process should be customized as per the courses, which creates a huge difference. It should not be like having the same parameter, having the same answer for every course in every uni. Of course, makes sense. Now, coming to UK universities, there is always a little kind of, small competition between UK and USA. So which UK universities are on par with universities with USA?
Okay, so this is a question we hear every day, Shefali, where people ask us, should we go to US or should I go to UK? And I feel that question is redundant. Okay, why redundant is because you're comparing apples to oranges rather than comparing, if you really want to make a right comparison, it should be about, if I have a university A in UK, US, and do I comparing it to university B in UK? So the idea is, what are you getting in US? What are you getting in UK? So you have some brilliant universities in US and you have some brilliant universities in UK. But if you're getting a great university in UK and not so great in US, or vice versa, that's how the selection should be. It should be what are you getting at? Okay, so I wouldn't want to make a sweeping statement that, look, the US is better or the UK is better, but I think both countries have some brilliant institutions, really good opportunities for students. It's more about identifying what are the courses you're going in for, figure out where is the industry exists, where would you get more exposure, to figure out what are the universities you would be able to get admission in US, what would you get in university in UK, and then see which ones maximizes your goals. And that's holds just not for US and UK, it also adds up. Let's say we add Australia to the mix, or we add Canada or anything else. It's the idea is to compare the institution to institution, and we have institutions, great institutions, both sides of the pond,
Right, it's a very valid point. And as you mentioned earlier, the university selection should happen based on the course that you're going for. So whether it should not be like country comparison, it should be the uni and the course comparison, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. So we have already talked about the importance of application, as you mentioned that students share the same SOP for all the courses and uni kind of thing. Do you have any personal experience would you like to share over here? In regards to the application process that you have seen, okay, how important application plays a role?
Oh, yes, as I said, application, we did talk about earlier, your application plays a bigger role because it's not about admission, it's also about scholarships, it's also about everything else around it. You're applying for a campus ambassador role, you're applying for a lot of those things. So, application is what it used, so it's important you pay a lot of attention to your application for the whole process,
Yeah. Do you have any personal experience that a student might have come to you and then you realize that the person might have done really wrong? He might be applying for a longer period.
Shivali, all the time. We see that because we've seen students come in and picking up wrong courses, because we've seen students pick up courses by buzzwords. Sometimes the buzzword can be misleading. So you picked up because the course title said something, but it's probably heading you for a different direction of it. So you're seeking the same, because same course can be, what your objectives of the course could be different. Title seems similar, but the objective could be different. You're hitting one towards from a research side, the other from an industry perspective. So we've seen those things happen, and students come in and discuss, this is what I'm going to do. But they say, why did it not go through? Because the application you put in, you probably put it from a different perspective. The course is aiming at achieving different objectives from the whole thing. And so we see that every day, and that's where our value add comes in, where we advise people how to change or update their applications for that matter.
Right. We're almost near to end our session, but before we end it, there's a very important question. I mean, I believe everyone who's going to abroad to study and everywhere, or studying even in India also, the ultimate goal is to have a great career opportunity and all that. So which university courses, or which if you want to segregate, has the best graduate employment rate?
Okay, that's a very difficult one to answer, Shifali, because I wouldn't want to paint any course as not having a good opportunity. I think it's about first finding yourself, and I've seen today's world, how the world has evolved. It's from last 30 years where it was very clear, you do an MBA, you do engineering. Today, people are doing courses which you wouldn't have thought about, let's say about a few years ago, and still doing really well in a career. I think more important than trying to pick up a course is trying to be ready for the employment or the job market. Because there are two things which I suggest people. One is, don't focus on the passport, focus on your career. Because you've seen people get too focused around picking up a passport, and they forget that, that my career needs to take me to another place or to another city, another part of the world. Okay, so that sometimes can be misleading, because you're trying to look for a job which doesn't exist over there at all. Second thing specifically holds true with the master's students. As we talked about masters being a one-year program, by the time you understand everything, the course is over, you've probably not figured out how the employment cycle works. The big mistake, the cardinal mistake which Indian students tend to do, is they assume that after my course is over, that's the time I start applying, because that's where the companies look for employment. But it is, I believe, a wishful thinking to assume that companies will match the recruitment cycle to your academic cycle. It has to be the other way around, where you need to align yourself to their recruitment cycle. So, it's about trying to figure out which companies I would want to apply to for employment, trying to figure out what are the entry criteria. Is my resume good enough for it? How do I fill the gaps in my resume? Do I apply in time? Then also making use of networking opportunities which come up. You have career fairs in college, you would have LinkedIn, you have a lot of other things, or, your past students, your friends. So the idea is to identify the path you would need to seek, identifying how do you maximize that path. And I've seen students who go there prepared, who know what they want to do, they're prepared, but they know when the cycle starts, they know when to apply. Those are the students tend to find good employment opportunities. On the other hand, we've seen courses with amazing employment skills. Students with a very good academics going from top universities struggle to find it, because they did not focus on it during the academic year. So at the end of the cycle, they start figuring it out, and by then they need a full year to go through it, applications and everything else around it. So that can be an issue. So I wouldn't want to paint it around a course. I would want to paint it around people. It's always about being prepared.
Right. Your research should be on the point. You should be ready for customization in all the process. If you see, like, the answer should be as per the need, not as per you. And you should be active to participate and be ready to face that new word that you're going forward, right?
Right. Absolutely, Shivani.
Great. It was pleasure talking to you. If you have any final mantra to share with the students, please share.
No, I think we had a good session, Shifali. I think we did discuss quite a bit. And again, the important thing is, my last thoughts to my student is, always seek professional advice. There is a lot to be gained. There is a thought that, maybe, and I've seen this happen, is students don't wish to go to consultant because they feel consultant may not, because they get paid by the institutions, they may not, my scholarships will get impacted, they will not get. In fact, it works the other way around, because we know the system, we know how things work, and we should be able to get things working for you much faster. And when I say we, I'm not talking for myself, I'm talking for the entire industry. So do seek professional advice. People who will be there for a while know the processes. There's a lot for you to get.
Right. And any help is actually better than having nothing in the backup. So guys, go ahead, check this whole series and watch other videos. Check out Fateh Education as well. Check out University Living as well. All the best for your courses and the new academic year. Keep watching us. Thank you joining us today over here, Sunit. And soon I'll hope that I'll be hosting you again soon, maybe on some webinar and others. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Keep watching our ULTV sessions. And for more information, you check out our social media handles. We have great information coming for you guys. Great news coming for you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Sunil.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.